ever been walking down the neon streets minding your own business after grabbing a bite to eat at Tom's Diner and suddenly out of nowhere a crazy gang member or God forbid a cyber psycho has threatened your life wanting your chrome or your money? Have they got to the point where they have fired their gun at you and knocked you on the floor bleeding out, giving you only a few moments to call someone that can help save your life? Well, have no fear, because for just a few hundred/thousands of dollars a month, you can get the best treatment out there. One team who will take only 7 minutes to get to your body that is losing blood faster and faster, and package dependent will save you from the inevitable flatline. This team is your local trauma team, who together with a large number of their close corporation partners will give you the best treatment you could ask for in your time of need. But who are these amazing people on the trauma team that I speak so highly of whilst totally not being paid by their higher-ups? What makes them stand out from the regular medics? How have they changed over the years, and what do you get from being with them? Well, in today's video, we will be exploring Night City's medical corporation and how they can save your life when you travel. This is the story behind Cyberpunk's medical corporation, known as Trauma Team. The corporation of Trauma Team isn't actually a primarily Night City-based corporation. Instead, the trademark of Trauma Team International now currently spreads throughout most of North America, with its headquarters being based within Seattle, Washington. This team currently also now has locations based within, as mentioned, most cities in North America, Tokyo, and of course Night City. Originally found within Seattle before the year of 2020, this corporation noticed that there was a real gap in the market for personal medical assistance, and now as America was suffering more and more violence due to a wide variety of things, such as the data crash, the rising gang warfare and nomad clans, and the many wars America wanted to get themselves involved in to benefit from different trade routes and all, such as the Central American Wars, this was the perfect time for them to set up. As Trauma Team International did set up, violence and crime rates rose massively within the United States, and because of that, this corporation became easily one of the most powerful within all of America, gaining clients almost every second. This immediate rise in power allowed them to then spread into Canada, parts of Europe, and then eventually reaching into Japan. By the year 2020, over a dozen Trauma Team crews would be sent into major cities at a time to help with the injuries and deaths by natural causes, which was honestly quite rare, and crime-related deaths. As Trauma Team went on to set up within Night City, they would build a large medical hospital within Little China, within the Watson district, which would also give the public access to its own Night City Area Rapid Transit service, which ran from the med center to other parts of the larger city. These members of Trauma Team are indeed some of the best paramedic techs and staff money could buy from all over the world, with no money being spared within this corporation, and many people really respected them when they'd see them on the streets. With all of that said, it sounds like the most perfect medical system you could ask for within a city, and most will probably think they'd want them in theirs without hesitation. However, Trauma Team hasn't gotten to where they are today without asking their clients to pay a pretty penny for their services. Within the 2020s, the Trauma Team business model was said to be split into 3 types of coverage. The first was the full body life coverage, which would either cost the client €500 per month or €5,550 a year. With this, you would get full access to Trauma Team. However, if you were to call them out to help with your condition, you would have to pay a further €100 for every minute they were out on your call, and that would not stop ticking away until your arrival or their arrival at the nearest corporate med center. With that said, Trauma Team with this package, for example, would not be obliged to actually take you to a hospital or med center. Here they would be responsible for reviving and stabilizing your condition, even if that was you being critically wounded. And once that was done, if you were not on a good enough package, they would just leave and bill you once they got back to the med center or hospital. On top of that, if a Trauma Team is sent into an area in which they would have to use their weaponry, the client who called them out would also have to refund them for all the ammunition they used, as well as the fuel they used to get there and any equipment and personnel damage. Whilst this is the most popular service for the people within their cities, there is one benefit they can have if Trauma Team do not get there within 10 minutes, and that is the customer will receive 50% off of the cost of spent ammunition. So whilst you could have lost your life thanks to them being late, at least you will not have to spend an absolute fortune on their ammunition. Instead, your corpse will only be charged 50% of it, and who will pay it, it doesn't really matter. That's for you to sort bought out or your closest relatives anyway. The second coverage within the 2020s was one called corporate coverage, or the more expensive corporate executive coverage, which would cost the customer €1,500 per month or €16,500 a year for the corporate cover, and €12,000 per month or €120,000 a year for the executive cover. With this plan, you are guaranteed a response time of just 7 minutes, and when the team arrive, they absolutely will take you to the corporate medical center, but the client will still have to pay for equipment or personnel damage for the regular corporate cover anyway. For the executives, they will not have to pay a penny for any of this. However, paying €12,000 a month, I don't think anyone would expect you to. The plan above, however, is known as the high priority coverage, which will set you back €34,000 every month, and due to how expensive this service is, there is no yearly charge. It is only monthly, maybe due to the nature of the people taking this cover out. With this plan, the client who takes it out will gain the Gold Trauma Team Inc. card and will be guaranteed a response time of 3 to 5 minutes, which they claim is the fastest in the business. On a call out, the client that needs picking up and care will be collected and taken not to a med center, but to a corporate hospital instead. Luckily for the client, they will not have to pay for any ammunition and fuel used when they come to collect them. However, surprisingly, they will still have to pay for any equipment or personnel damage. So really, what made these plans different within the 2020s? Well, two small things: response time and location of where the client goes. The ones who paid more are more likely to survive any critical condition and will be taken to a luxury bed to recover, whereas those who are lower in the benefits will more likely or not bleed out on the street, and even if they are recovered, will just be left there on the street, this time with some bandages and with their heart beating again. By 2022 and 2023, the fourth corporate war had taken place, and for the trauma team, this was their busiest period they had ever experienced, which could be seen as a good thing financially. However, they were struggling massively because of the war, and their resources were becoming very limited. With so many calls coming in almost every minute, the corporation had to change up their policies to make sure the right people were being seen to. Due to the nature of the war being started by both corporations of Arasaka and Militech, Trauma Team declared that they would take absolutely no calls from either side. This could have been seen as a way to show their neutrality, to make it so both corporations kept them in their good books for when the war comes to an end. This allowed Trauma Team to focus only on civilian requests, but with a new catch. This was the combat rate. If anyone so much as fired a weapon within half a kilometer of their premises, they would be charged for it, and quite substantially as well. Despite this new policy focusing only on civilians and adding new charges to their finances, Trauma Team still struggled within the corporate war, as the calls were mounting the more battles that were happening all over the world. By 2045, the long fourth corporate war had finally come to an end, and fortunately for the Trauma Team, they had survived it. But it had meant that they had to only focus on regional areas instead of full international cover. This was because the war had devastated their suppliers, and as a result of this, repairs for their AV4s were becoming hard to come by, as well as things like medical dressings, key drugs, vaccines, and trained personnel. With more and more hospitals and clinics collapsing due to the lack of resources and funding, quite a lot of patients who were still ill or were wounded would find their plans with the Trauma Team changed to just the basic rate. Most of the reasons were due to the fact that many of the ill and injured individuals could not afford the high response fees that had more than likely gone up due to how high in demand they had become. Despite that, however, it was reported that many edge runners would go in on to buy single Trauma Team cards that they would then break into to trick them into thinking they were call-out priorities, in the hope that Trauma Team could provide them with regular treatment for their wounded team members due to the nature of their work. Due to the recent events in recent years, these trauma teams would undergo an image change as well, not really by choice, but because they had to due to how the world had changed them. The teams would now swap out their basic blue and yellow uniforms that had displayed their compassion to their fellow man, and now they would be heavily armed to allow them to deal with anything on their job. These trauma team workers, almost troopers at this point, would all operate using extremely advanced and protective armor, armor. They would go on to fly into a medical emergency with the latest and greatest in flight engineering, that being their own new TTI Medical AV-4A, which would be an extremely lightweight aerodyne that could get in and out of tight spaces with ease, and had heavily protected armor on it to make sure that if any were to be attacked, it could hold off from the heaviest gunfire it might experience. With that said, they won't exactly run from a fight if they need to, as the AV will be heavily armed with a front-mounted Gatling gun, as well as 7.62 SAW machine guns, which are mounted to the sides of the vehicle in which the security specialist would be sitting by, with mobile tanker trucks and a ground refueling station coming with them as backup. Within this team would be the main pilot, with the co-pilot sitting next to them working the front-mounted Gatling gun, with neither of these individuals leaving the aerodyne at any moment, ready to go at any moment's notice and fire at anyone who does not comply with their methods and requests. Behind the pilots are the security specialists, who as mentioned will watch over the vehicle with their SAW machine guns, and then directly behind them are the actual EMTs, who would go on to do the actual extraction operation and would be the main medical staff on the scene. If the operation does look a bit dodgy or risky, the security team will escort the EMTs out of the vehicle and will clear a path for them utilizing their rifles and submachine guns, and will most of the time not really fire them. They are just there to intimidate anyone in their way. However, they will kill anyone or massively wound them if they try anything, and will just leave them to die. To the Trauma Team Corporation, the Hippocratic Oath doesn't really mean anything at this point. They are there to help the client that has called them out for assistance. If they have to kill non-clients to get to them, so be it. Keeping the peace is not really their job. They are a corporation after all. Not only that, but their respect from their fellow man has gone at this point. What was once the comfort of Trauma Team coming in to help people was now a group of heavily armed, overworked, harried, angry and impatient workers who would not deal with anyone kindly anymore. They were at the end of their tether with the citizens thanks to how much bloodshed they had seen on a regular basis. By the end of this year, Trauma Team International had been reduced massively and now went under the branding of simply Trauma Team North America, which would be independent franchise-owned groups that would patrol cities and respond to insured victims once again. Because of this change in business model, the corporation couldn't charge what it once did, and during 2045, a new planning scheme went ahead with only 2 covers available to people. For the corporate cops of America, they would be given special treatment, allowing them to have full medical coverage by Trauma Team. For anyone else, they had the choice between silver coverage and executive coverage. Silver coverage was exactly the same as the standard membership from 2020, where it would cost the client €500 per month. But if the client needed surgery, they would then have to cover the cost for what they went under. With that said, however, if a client did not want to pay extra for hospital treatments, the Trauma Team would do everything in their paramedical abilities to help them before dropping the member off at a hospital, which would most likely force the client to have to pay regardless. For the executive cover, it was relatively the same thing. It cost €1,000 a month and included all the same things as the silver coverage. However, the only difference this time was the client on this plan would not have to pay for any surgery treatments. Essentially, 2045 brought about a system which many in America could afford compared to what they offered back in the 2020s. However, with that said, thanks to the recent war, many people were now homeless and jobless and still could not afford the treatment. And even if they could, the treatment Trauma Team offered now was filled with contempt. The loving medics that were once around within the 2020s had turned to almost soldiers who were only doing their job, and their clients were just there to make money for their corporation. For 30 years, Trauma Team continued as a small organization until it got to a point within 2077 where finally they had enough resources to set up as Trauma Team International once again, allowing them to regain all of their previous assets lost within the Fourth Corporate War. This didn't mean that the world had changed, however, as once again gangs were on the rise and the crime rate was skyrocketing. Due to this rising crime, Trauma Team International could once again raise the pricing of their services, and with the rise in prices, would once again equip their teams with the latest weaponry and machinery by Kang Tao, more substantial than what they had within the year of 2020, including things such as some of the most sophisticated reviving and life support technology available, some of the best the world had ever seen, including a mobile cryo tank that they could use to keep the clients safe if they are in a critical condition and give them enough time to get back to the med center without the client dying. Within Night City and and many other cities during this point, trauma teams would now be equipped with the Trauma Team Atlas AV, which would be a flagship product of Zetatech and the most popular AV model used within Night City. This AV would be extremely sleek in design and extremely dependable, meaning the trauma team would never have to worry about their equipment failing on them when they are out on calls. Now that trauma team were back up to full strength, their new pricing was revealed, with them now having 3 types of packages. But for all paying customers, they would receive on-the-ground services, which would include 24/7 emergency AV dispatch with a reflex booster ready pilot, armed safety experts, and military-trained paramedics. However, to make sure their clients were being genuine and the emergency was necessary, all of their clients' health would be tracked by internal cyberware, and if their signal was to show that they were in need of assistance, an AV squad would use their cyberware to locate them and would arrive on the scene in minutes. Although it is not specified how long exactly that would be, however it is stated that that would be down to how much they were paying for their service. Inpatient care would be on top of that and would guarantee that every trauma team branch clinic would be equipped with surgical nanites, specialized antibodies, and cryogenic chambers. They would also offer their own medication and reanimators and would own a selection of surplus implants, which they would gain from their suppliers. As for the plans, however, they would be classed as premium packages. These packages would be color-coded and would be silver, gold, and platinum. For most, the gold and silver were exactly like that of the services provided in 2020 and 2045. However, the most significant package would be the platinum, which would offer everything you could wish for. This would include 24/7 monitoring, emergency patient transport, surgery and nanosurgery, post-trauma rehabilitation, plastic surgery on demand, free checkups with the client's Ripperdoc, and up to 90% discount off prescriptions. And on top of all of that, they would be guaranteed a 3-minute response time to make sure nothing bad happened to the client. Prices are not really known at this point. However, it's safe to assume anyone on the platinum package would be paying something similar to €34,000 a month, if not even more at that point. For everyone else, they will be allowed a free 24-hour trial for trauma teams premium packages for if they cannot afford it in the long run. However, if they do use it, that will be it, and they will never be looked after again by trauma team unless they pay. For the most part, this is the norm for all within North America and some countries. Trauma team are there to care for their paying clients, however they are far more ruthless with how they treat them and others around them. But that isn't to say that the people still respect trauma team, as was found with the EMT within Night City in the year of 2077, named Nadia. Nadia was once an enthusiastic member of Trauma Team who had the best of intentions when signing up. When joining, she really felt like she would be the one to make the difference. She would be able to help save people and would enjoy being a hero within the city. However, she quickly realized that this job was not as simple as helping people out. It was far more hostile than that. On one call out to a platinum level client, Nadia and her team would head out into Westbrook to attend to the client. However, a big gang fight was taking place here, leading to the team to drop into heavy fire and come out of their AVs guns blazing. The team got to the platinum level client and tried everything to make sure they were stabilized and could extract him, but they were pinned down under tons of fire. And in this battle, Nadia's own boyfriend was killed in the process by one of these psychos who was at the forefront of the attack. Nadia could not let her head get out of the game. She had to save the client. That was her job. But as the squad was pinned down with the AV trying to clear a path, more and more of her team were killed, eventually leaving just her left with the client as the psycho got closer and closer to her. Eventually, Nadia was successful and secured the client, however had to leave behind her dead squad mates, including her own boyfriend. But she had to. The client was the priority and she had done her job. That was all that had mattered. Getting back to the HQ, Nadia would suffer massive guilt after seeing all of her squad die around her, and because of it had to undergo psychological tests to make sure she could go back out there and do her job. But Nadia only ever pictured the face of her dead boyfriend. She was still suffering, but she also needed to keep her job, and after reliving the moments just past, she was eventually cleared for duty and ready to continue on her job. Not long after that, Nadia would join a new team and would immediately receive a platinum alert within Pacifica. A team assumed she was a rookie and labeled her as such, but Nadia was still stuck in the memories of the last mission and knew that this one could go the same way. Arriving at the building within Pacifica, it was once again a hot zone as it was under gang control. patrol. The AV circled around waiting to fire on those wanting to attack them and eventually dropped off the 2 security officers as well as the EMTs, including Nadia. All seemed quiet at first as the team reached the client. However, they would go on to be ambushed by the many gang members who threatened to kill them, saying such things as, "Go home, sore bones, you ain't taking him, gonna get yourself geeked." As one of the team known as Strata got hit in the crossfire, Nadia would freeze in battle, remembering the events of last time, leading to a long hesitation before she administered the stimulant to stabilize him. Eventually the team fought through the apartment complex, taking out any of the gang members they could, and finally reached the client, only for Nadia to realize the horrors of the mission. The Platinum client they were there to save was the very man who had killed her last squad and boyfriend back in Westbrook. Nadia was stunned and suddenly she had a problem on her hands. Did she prioritize her job, which was to save the man, or did she avenge her fallen squad members and her boyfriend, who she still suffered the memories of? Freezing up again, Nadia finally snapped out of it and begrudgingly helped the Platinum client by hitting him with a stim. However, during this process, another team member, Gordon, would be hit by the gang members. Rushing to his assistance, her other squad mate would clear a path and tell Nadia to leave Gordon as he was gone. The job still needed to go ahead and Gordon's body meant nothing anymore. The client was once again the priority. Nadia here would be reminded of what her job was and how her trauma team members were not as important, and she had to get her head in the game and focus only on the client. During that order by the squad member Nap, the client would put on a smile and state, "The customer is always right." This triggered Nadia to once again remember her past and what he had done to her boyfriend back in Westbrook. As the team called in the AV for assistance blowing a hole in the side of the building for extraction, it would get shot down by the gang members, leaving the squad completely stranded within the building, meaning that they had to extract the client down 100 flights of stairs, fighting on every level. At that point in time, Nadia remembered a conversation she had with her boyfriend before the events in Watson, in which he would say they needed to be focused at all times and not let relationships cloud their judgment, with him asking, "If it came down to saving a customer's life or saving mine, what would you do?" However, before she could remember all of the conversation, she would witness the client killing her boyfriend once again and realize this man will always plague her nightmares. Back in the apartment, the client would go on to help the squad out with taking out a few of the gang members, and as the team started extracting down the 100 floors, Nadia had enough and pulled out her gun, sticking it to the back of the client's head. The other team members immediately took action, yelling at Nadia, with Strata grabbing her, asking what is wrong with her. After trying to convince her that the client needed to die for what he had done before, she was reminded once again that this was her job and she could not let her emotions get the better of her. Once again, the extraction continued as the remaining team members started heading down the many flights of stairs, but yet again they would get ambushed by the gang members, with Nap being hit in the process. Nadia went to comfort Nap and realized he needed to get into a safe place as they brought him into a nearby apartment. In the apartment, however, a mother and her daughter were hiding, to only be revealed by Strata and told to come out. The mother quickly asked for their assistance as she stated her daughter was extremely unwell and needed help. Attending to Nap's injuries, Nadia would see the daughter's condition and knew she had to do something about it. It was what she joined Trauma Team to do in the first place. However, Strata objected and yelled at her, saying she needed to tend to Nap, not the girl. If she didn't, he would die, but it was too late, as Nap had passed in those very moments. Strata was quick to attack Nadia, claiming that she had let him die, but now was not the time. The gang members were here and ready to attack. Nadia was still conflicted at this point with what to do with the small girl in front of her, eventually saying that she had to help her as she had the right to treatment. But Strata was having none of it, stating she was not part of the mission. She was not a client, and because of her, she had let Nap die. She was nothing more than a little rat. As Strata continued blaming Nadia for everything that had gone wrong with the mission, the Platinum client, after being administered with a stim, had taken the fight to the gang members himself, slaughtering them in seconds, and just as Strata and Nadia were about to kill each other, rushed in to claim that he had cleared a path for their extraction. As Nadia slowly dropped the gun she had held to Strata's head, she went on to give out medicine to the little girl, stating she needed to take one a day and eventually she will get better. Furious at the situation, Strata could do nothing about about it, but it was time to go as they continued on extracting the now even more injured Platinum client. But as they got closer to the bottom of the apartment, Nadia's memories of her boyfriend came back into her mind as she once again remembered their conversation about who they would prioritize in a mission. Would they prioritize their lover or the client? With Nadia claiming she would do anything and everything to save him if he were the one to go down, triggering her memory of that day where she had lost him to the client she was now extracting. Finally, Strata and Nadia had got the client down to the bottom level of the apartment and out into the street ready for their extraction from Pacifica and back to the corporate hospital. However, the battle was not over yet as they now had to defend the area and the client from the wave of gang members who were quickly following them. Once again, Strata and Nadia came head to head, with Strata claiming she was not ready to be back on the field. She had ruined the mission and had got all of the other members killed thanks to her overwhelming emotions and not focusing on the job at hand. But before things could get worse, the client snuck up behind Strata and snapped his neck, killing him then and there. Nadia was once again the only one left, and the client had been responsible for the final death. Horrified at what she had just witnessed, yelling at the client, he would go on to claim that she was the last good little medtech standing, and Strata won't take that away from her now. But there was no time to think about what had just happened as the gang was now here, and one giant member had entered the battlefield. As the two tried to hide in the nearby alley, Nadia would be hit by a stray bullet, causing her to be not as effective in battle anymore. At that same time, the giant gang member grabbed the client and started to fight him with his gorilla arm cybernetics. As the two fought, the client would frequently state that he was untouchable as he held platinum status, and they would always defend him. But Nadia was overwhelmed and could not help at this point in time. Eventually, as all looked like it was over for the client, Nadia was able to grab her gun, aimed it towards the two, and shot the gang member square in the head, killing him instantly and saving the client from his inevitable fate, with Nadia crying out, "Get away from my patient." As the two slowly went around the corner to the extraction point, the client would claim that he needed to be saved. He was an asset, platinum coverage, only the best, and because of it, she was the best. She should be platinum exclusive. That's what clients pay for. But as they got around the corner, once again, hordes of gang members stood in their way, and it looked like it was all over for the two. Nadia would state to the client that this is the job. This is what she had signed up for. She was the one who wanted to get back out in the field, and in that moment of realization, accepted her end. However, suddenly their backup had arrived as they mowed down all of the gang members in front of them. As the backup team exited their vehicle, the extraction was almost complete and the job was almost over. However, once again, Nadia looked at the client and remembered that day that started it all. All she could picture was her boyfriend's dead corpse looking her in the eye, and she realized she couldn't do it. Too many people had died and she had finished her mission. As she remembered that for the final time, she would draw her weapon to the back of the client's head, triggering the other trauma team members to raise theirs. And after yelling at her to drop it, Nadia would be conflicted between pulling the trigger and leaving him, with the ghost of her boyfriend saying to her, "Don't do this for me." However, the time had come and it was the end of their tales. Nadia would ask the client one last question: "How's it feel?" For the client to only respond with, "Feels platinum," before gunfire was unleashed between all of the parties. Nadia's job had finally been completed. In summary, the trauma team are some of the best medical experts out there, but their job is far more than that, and they are always at risk of being killed wherever they go. The paying client is their priority, and if that means they lost 2, 3, 4, or 2 whole squadrons to save a platinum client, so be it. That is the job at hand. Will the corporation continue to expand out in the future, or will it once again be affected by the world events around it? Only time can really tell. But for now, this has been the story behind the medical corporation known as Trauma Team International, as well as the brave EMT who lost her life to make a difference, who was named as Nadia from Night City. I want to say a massive thank you for watching this video, and do let me know what you thought of Trauma Team within the Cyberpunk universe. For me personally, I'm devastated they got next to nothing in the game because their whole identity is so amazing and they are a core element within Mike Pondsmith's original tabletop game. There was part of me that hoped they'd be there to revive your character when you flatline in the game, similar to how you go to hospital in GTA, but apart from some rare encounters in your travels and the beginning mission, they played no part at all, and I really really hope going forward they play a bigger part in the story, similar to what Max Tack should also have. But let me know what you think, and if you want to explore the Nadia story more, I highly encourage you to check out the Trauma Team comic, as that is really good and the art is brilliant as usual. But if you want more Cyberpunk content from me, you can find a playlist link below, as well as many other videos on my channel. And if you want to leave a like, comment and sub, that will help get them out to more people, so that would be a massive help if you could do that. A huge thank you to my patrons and supporters for allowing me to make these on a regular basis, including my small fishes, my big fishes Christopher, Artogrem, Anthony, Greg and Last Persona User, my YouTube channel Wise Ones, Fiery Italian, Sith Lord 906, Ica the Wolf and Video Game Player 75, my Sharks Whale Such Gaming, Jason X117 and Rodesy, and my massive megalodons Sinus, Hazy Thoughts and Chernobyl Stalker. Check out my other links, use my code WiseFishYT for up to 30% off your G Fuel, like and sub, and yeah, with all that said, thank you once again for watching this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.